This video, it's a reaction to Bill Gates' a review of Homo Deus by Harari. And while I think there's a lot that Bill got right, I think there are a few important points that I feel he somewhat misstated. And first, he starts out and says, "I am more optimistic than Harari, is that this future is not preordained." I think we'll talk about that a little later, but I really think he missed the boat there. But let's look at what Harari says and see how that works out. He says we have an agenda for the 21st century. It's to end death, deliver happiness, and upgrade humanity. And so the way the book kind of flows out is he starts with what the agenda was for the last 70,000 years, and which was conquering the world and giving meaning to the world. But he does point out that it's not organized to maximize sapiens' happiness, but to increase DNA. History is not the story of the increase in sapiens' happiness. It's a very important point. Right? It's kind of one of the warnings that Harari gives us too, is that, is that we got to the top of the food chain, but we were still insecure and anxious, which made us rather dangerous and rather cruel. And those two characteristics we really haven't gotten rid of. Now, people like Bill Gates and Pinker and others have demonstrated how, over time, we've become less dangerous and we've become less cruel as we move towards a greater equality. But Harari talks about the modern deal. And he says, okay, but let's look at the modern deal. And let's look at, humanism is on the value side of the modern deal. And this idea of less dangerous and less cruel is actually tied, or tithed almost, to the idea of humanism. So it's very dependent on it. And so then we have this challenge. We have what I call an uh-oh here, is that we now have a new meaning coming in the chapter on Time Bob in the Laboratory. And what he basically talks about is the fact that, hey, guess what? We have we have all of our political, social, and economic institutions are going to be under attack because they were based upon this humanism concept. So, the first thing he says is that we have no free will, which kind of took humanism out. And also that all organisms, both us and animals, are all algorithms. So that's where he goes with that chapter. Then he jumps into the chapter where he talks about the decoupling of intelligence and consciousness. All right. And he talks about how we advantaged consciousness back in the days, but then as we went through the farmer, the cities, and to today, we're now advantaging intelligence. And we're seeing this gap develop between consciousness and intelligence. And that creates another uh-oh, because there are Google, Amazon, and Facebook are really better at the intelligence side than we are, or can be better at the intelligence side, according to Harari. All right. Then he says, what are we going to upgrade to? And this is the big point. It's Harari really, the way I read Harari, is he really sees two visions coming here. One is he sees us having this techno-humanism vision, which is basically what we're going to see is this cyborg type of thing. We're going to see this development of Superman. But there's another warning here that, this Superman is still tithed to this idea of being dangerous and cruel. I mean, it may be we say that's less dangerous and less cruel, but still that leaves us with dangerous and cruel. And then the challenge is that, as far as equality goes, we have this huge gap that still exists between the wealthy and the poor. And so there's this huge gap. And what the challenge is that we have the speed of change coming at us. And with the speed of change is going much faster than we'll ever be able to close the gap between the wealthy and the poor. And so what we're really saying is that we're seeing this bioenhancement possibility by a morally inept species. I mean, species that still has a lingering dangerous and cruelness. On top of that, when we looked at the idea with regards to complexity, complex systems, deliver unpredictable and emergence. I mean, that's how we see that they're complex. And so we focus on the outcome. And just think about if you're focusing on the outcome of bioenhancement. I mean, are we going to throw away the children that didn't work out because it was unpredictable why they didn't work out? So Harari tells us, let's look at level 2 complex systems. They can be changed by us doing something about them. We'll get a little bit more into that later. Then Harari talks about advantaging the inorganic, right? And when he talks about the concept of data religion. right? And here's where he's saying basically what we're going to see is the other option is that all of our institutions are built on top of the technologies, Google, Facebook, and Watson. All right, and I mean other technologies, but those are the ones he's talking about now. And the advantage that we see is that Google, Facebook, and Watson are all built on they're not built on top of the genetic structure of the selfish gene, but they're built on top of being enablers. That's how they started out, and that's kind of their birth, if you will. So then, what Gates says is, what about purpose? And when Gates talks about purpose, I get the feeling that I'm not sure he's talking about the purpose of the 95% of people who were laborers and soldiers and farmers. And so, would they really be happy if the system delivered everything on the bottom two pieces, say, of the Maslow circle, and let the people themselves decide how they want to be self-actualized and develop their own sense of self-esteem? And here's a different food for thought along the same lines, right? If here we are, and if we see this, a species coming at us, do we want it to be carnivorous, competitive, and selfish? Or would it be better if Homo explorer, if you will, was built on top of enabler, and so that it explored the universe as from the enabler and not from the selfishness? Now, so then we get that back to this level 2 complex systems, right? And so basically, if we compare that, Harari's not saying that they're preordained. He's saying that the purpose of his book is that because level 2 complex systems can be changed, he's allowing for the fact that by bringing this forward, we may be able to change some of the direction that we're going. That's how I perceive the difference. Thank you.